And a super tight race at the top, I'll tell you what.
Boy, this was hanging chads and everything else.
It's a slasher film, and it's a callback to really one of the great, if not the all-time best slasher movies.
Now, as soon as I saw the trailer, I'm like, man, you're in my head. Get out! So right here, what should they be singing to themselves? Simply the best.
As always.
Tina Turner.
That's right.
Was that our year-end song?
It was the Karate Kid one.
No, that was our half year.
That's our half year. Jason Tostovan. And we all jump. Yeah.
So far.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, but we can't do that anymore. You know, the lawyers and stuff. But just think about that. It's in your head right now. Tina Turner, simply the best, because these are the 10 best horror movies of the year 2018. We'll talk about a lot more than just 10. A lot of movies to talk about.
Yeah, some disappointments and some, that flew under the radar. And
right,
yeah.
Right. So welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
We're from madwolf.com. Glad you've joined us for a little rundown of the best of the year. And, of course, a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about, was it Vogue? The Vogue article. Because I was just about to say, what do you think about the year in horror? But we kind of covered that here recently because of that ridiculous article. I think both of us feel it's a pretty solid year.
Yeah, I mean, it's no 2017, but you're not going to get that. You're
Exactly.
not going to get It and
Get Out.
Yeah.
And,
arguably The Shape of Water certainly was a monster movie, and it won Best Picture. You're not going to see another year like that for a while.
Right, because I remember it was this time last year we had Chris Hamill from the Gateway Film Center, and he said he called it.
Yeah,
he called it Shape of Water.
He said Shape of Water was going to win.
I personally don't view that as a horror movie, but I can understand how some people do.
Absolutely,
so that's totally fine. So you're right. We're not going to get to 2017 every year. 2018 was a fine year.
Yes, it was.
I think a fine year. We're going to talk about that.
And a super tight race at the top. I'll tell you what.
Oh boy, hanging chads and everything else. This was right down to the wire.
Yeah.
It was. But we'll get to that. So Fright Club Live, we got the first one of 2019 coming up. Hard to believe we're talking about 2019, but we are, and you've got the whole year all carved out. So what are we looking at for January?
We are going to kick it off with a big one, Time Crimes.
Oh, nice.
Such a weird movie.
It really is.
It's a great one.
I'm hoping a lot of people haven't seen it.
Yeah, it could be.
Especially we haven't seen it on the big screen. Right? I remember watching it at home, I think, pretty much.
I think you're right.
But anyway, if you haven't seen it on the big screen, if you haven't seen it, it's weird in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. It's a great one. And the podcast is going to be on sci-fi horror crossovers.
Great. So that should be fun. Also coming up, we've got our annual, we always love this. This has become a little tradition here, the Skeletons in the Closet podcast, because that is where, once we get the nominations for the Academy Awards, we dig into their past.
That's right. And it is a fun one that we do every year. And this year, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to get Corey Metcalf, our senior Aussie correspondent. He was supposed to join us last year, but because he is the man from the future, I mean, it's tough to schedule. They're like 26 hours ahead of us.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's tough.
And again, I'm going to try to press him on the lotto numbers since he lives in the future. But so we'll get those when the Oscar nominations come out. So big fun coming up, and we want to get to it. We've got the 10 best of the year, 2018. Should we jump right in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. At number 10, a group of college friends reunite for a trip to the forest, but encounter a menacing presence in the woods that's stalking them. It's The Ritual.
No, I didn't hear anything. Come on.
What the fuck is that? Fucking hell, we don't know where we are!
I remember saying at the time when this came out, for everybody that hated It Comes at Night because there was nothing in the woods, here you go.
That's right. That's right. It was a fun monster movie, right? But that's not really all it was. I mean, it was a really great look at cowardice, and
masculinity.
Yes, yeah. It started off, and there were so many flashbacks to a crime with 5 guys who every year they take a vacation together, and this one year they're out having some drinks, deciding what this vacation is going to be, and tragedy strikes.
Yeah,
and so they end up taking the vacation in memoriam.
Mm-hmm. Very similar to The Descent. And we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's sort of a masculine, other end of the spectrum to The Descent. But, they end up in a world of hurt, and the monster is cool.
So cool.
It is cool looking.
I mean, it's so cool. And that's, in any kind of a monster movie, that's the toughest thing, is to give you something unique and interesting and believable. I mean, that was one of the best things about The Descent, was
they were scary.
so scary.
They were scary.
And this one is, I mean, it's scary, but it's also weird. And it's not just a monster movie, and it's not just sort of a cabin in the woods kind of a horror movie. It's also got, I love a zealot. I love a good creepy zealot.
Oh, especially once they get in the cabin there. I love that scene. Love that scene. Director is David Bruckner. He did Southbound. He also did, in the VHS series, the anthology, he did Amateur Night.
Yeah, the best one.
Yeah, certainly one of the best ones. And it stars Rafe Spall, who you might have seen for some other movies. He was in, what's the one with the tiger on the boat?
Life of Pi.
Life of Pi.
Yeah. I did not like him in that.
I didn't either. Why didn't they just call it the tiger on the boat? I don't know. I can't imagine why, because that's not a great title at all. But yeah, we enjoyed The Ritual. And if you want something in the woods, this is the one to go to. Enjoyable. And that is number 10 on our best of 2018. Moving up to number 9, a young woman is involuntarily committed to a mental institution where she is confronted by her greatest fear. But is it real or a product of her delusion? It's Unsane.
You should be protecting me. Mom, no one believes me. I'm getting you out.
There's nothing we can do unless you have proof that a crime's been committed.
But Claire Foy is the it girl, isn't she?
She is, yeah.
I mean, she's everywhere right now.
And this is the one that we talked about. Just totally freaked my head out.
Yeah,
because
you wouldn't go.
I've got that fear. That's why I stopped there just reading. Now, as soon as I saw the trailer, I'm like, man, you're in my head. Get out. But yeah, this is Steven Soderbergh, and he crafted a really just straight genre flick. You know, just pulling out all the stops. And really effective.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like about Claire Foy in this movie, and honestly in almost everything I've seen her in, she's not afraid to be unlikable, and I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. This character is hard to like. And then the other thing I really liked about this film was that the villain, or is he really, or is he a figment of her imagination? Josh Leonard. Josh from the Blair Witch Project. Yeah.
Even though he lost his tongue, he's back talking. Oh, was that a spoiler? I'm sorry. Come on. And also Jay Farrow from Saturday Night Live.
Who does a great job. He does. He does a very nice job in what is not a comic role.
No.
And, of course, much was made out of Soderbergh using iPhones to film it. And you know
we've
what?
Talked about that.
But the thing is, the effect that he created with whatever gimmickry he used was sort of hypersaturated and unpleasant in a way that really benefited a film about being unable to get out of a sterile, unpleasant environment. I mean, it really worked well, I thought.
And I think Steven Soderbergh, time and again, has shown that he is willing to step out, not only in how he films a movie, but how he markets it.
Sure.
What kind of platforms he puts it on. He's been out there, I think, on the cutting edge, or trying to be on the cutting edge of expanding the possibilities and breaking down some limits. So I have certainly no problem with that. I know when you say, oh, shot on an iPhone, well, maybe and maybe not. But, he's out there and he's trying to push it a little bit. Mm-hmm. I just think this is a very effective genre picture. Yeah. And if you have those types of fears as I do, man, it'll get right to you. And that is number 9, Unsane, on the best of 2018. At number 8 is a crazy horror comedy. And those are always good. A teenage girl and her little brother must survive a wild 24 hours during which a mass hysteria of unknown origin causes parents to turn violently on their own kids, mom and dad.
Multiple reports are now coming in of parents murdering their own children.
Listen to me. We have to get out of the house before Mom and Dad come home. Dad?
It's the first of 2 Nicolas Cage movies that are going to make this list.
What? Spoiler. Yeah, he had a good year.
He did have a good year.
And this was, you said it at the time that you loved how it just upended conventions here and placed 2 very contrasting characters against each other in mom and dad. Not only the mom and the dad, and not only Nicolas Cage, who was just, as Nicolas Cage is, wild and crazy, but then you've got Selma Blair, who's like, let's stay on topic.
Exactly. They were such a great married couple, especially because what she's trying to rein him in and focus on is murdering their children, which was just, it's a very dark and subversive concept.
It is, yeah.
It's just executed so brilliantly in this movie. And there are a lot of horror movies that are kind of based on the concept of, like, God, sometimes I just want to kill these kids. Tons and tons.
And then others, like, say, the Babadook,
Right.
take the guilt you feel in not maybe loving your kids all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a good area to mine because almost everyone can relate.
Yeah.
And
But
then,
you don't want to. You want to pretend you don't.
Right. But here they're just having just balls out fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some fun surprises where, they're so focused on the task at hand that they're not really paying attention to some things they should be really thinking through. I mean, it's a bloody, massive a movie, and it's just thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, it's the writer-director is Brian Taylor, who did the Crank series.
Yeah.
Jason Statham. And I think,
Dwight Yoakam.
Yeah, I was going to say, our buddy Dwight Yoakam.
That's right.
Is in that movie as well. And this one is certainly different from, I mean, the Crank, it was, all action and frenetic and let's put the pedal to the metal. But this one just has, I think you said the word subversive streak about it.
I mean, the thing that it
like,
reminded me a little bit of is a movie from the year before called Cooties, which is fun and it's I think just a fantasy for teachers who would really kind of like the opportunity to kill all their kids in their class. And this is taking it a step farther, and it's full of energy. It's very darkly funny. And here's the thing: there's an opening sequence, as there usually is in a horror film. If you don't like it, the opening sequence, don't watch the movie.
Yeah, that's that's a good indicator, and it always reminds me of that's how I sum up the opening scene of Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh yeah,
with the army man
Yes,
out
absolutely.
out the window of the bus. If you don't think that's funny, then get out right now. Of course, we were on the floor just laughing. I thought it was the funniest thing because I know. That movie, Napoleon, is just not everybody's comedic bag, and that was a good indicator of whether or not it's going to be.
Yeah.
Same way with this movie.
Yeah.
If you're not in,
if you don't care for that opening shot, if you're not like, oh yeah, don't watch the rest of the movie.
But if you are going to, then come sit next to us because it is on our top 10, number 8 of 2018, Mom and Dad. Taking it up to number 7. This was just from a few months ago because this was not on the half of the year list.
It was just last month.
This is a newbie.
Mm-hmm.
This is a newbie jumping in there, and it jumps in pretty well. It's a small group of American soldiers finding horror behind enemy lines on the eve of D-Day. Overlord.
What do you do with those people? They have been given a purpose.
So we've said many times about 7. What's in the box? What's in the box? Here it's more like, what's in the basement? What's in the basement? What's going on down there?
This is a movie. It starts off as a very well packaged war film, and it introduces you to all of those same sort of cliches that you're used to in a war film. You've got kind of a hayseed, and you've got the one who just can't wait to get home to his girlfriend, and you've got the one who's traumatized and just balls out, and and it just does such a good job of developing those characters.
Yeah. Knowing that it has something in store for you.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, because it changes on a dime into a really a mad scientist, basically Nazi zombie film.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it also really skirts a lot of superhero movies, because there are a lot of superhero movies, especially in the Captain America franchise, where it's Nazis. Well, Wonder Woman had them too. It's Nazis, and they're experimenting because Nazis experimented. And so this just takes that to its clear, obvious horror film sort of next level.
Sure. And this is director Julius Avery. I don't think known for anything.
No, he had done a lot of shorts.
Yeah.
One of the things that's great about this movie, Pilu
Asbeck.
Yeah, we love him.
Yeah, love him.
And he plays the main Nazi, the main baddie.
Well, he's got a presence.
Yeah, he does.
Whatever type of movie he's doing. He was Scarlett Johansson's sidekick in her ill-fated remake, the anime movie.
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell. And I mentioned before, he's just fantastic in a foreign film called The War.
Right.
Or A War, A War,
right.
if you look that up. But he strikes a presence.
Yes,
he can play
does.
down, more sympathetic, or he can play menacing. He's got that face.
Yeah, and here he's menacing.
Yeah.
And as I said when we talked about it the last time, he comes off as sort of handsome Michael Shannon. And Michael Shannon is just a terrifying presence, handsome or not. So he does a great job. I mean, he's a great, really, really relishes the opportunity to be evil in this. And then the supporting cast is wonderful, including Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's son. And then the lead, Jovan Adepo, who plays that, the one who's uncorrupted so far.
Yeah.
And, it just talks about, I mean, that's really what the theme is not letting war corrupt you, and also always remembering that Nazis are never good people.
And and anytime you can find a fresh approach to the zombie lore, you tip your hat, because it's such a well-worn horror staple that if you can find a little niche, it's all the more it feels fresh, and you get. Sometimes you get that much more credit because, like, okay, we found a different angle to get in there.
And in fact, they find such a different angle that I read several places. People would just say, "This is not a Nazi zombie movie." No, it really is.
Kind of
Those
is.
are cadavers that they bring into that basement. When you bring a cadaver back, guess what they are?
So that is Overlord, clocking in at number 7. And our best horror of 2018. Up to number 6. This was on the half-year list, I believe. So it stays in the top of our minds. Never take your mistress on an annual guy's getaway. How many times have I...
Stop it.
Especially one devoted to hunting. A violent lesson for 3 wealthy married men. It's revenge.
Women always have to put up a fight.
In addition to being extremely bloody.
Oh, so bloody.
It's just so visually striking.
Oh, it really
I
is.
think. It goes at one point, probably the better part of a half an hour, without any dialogue whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
But some of the visuals are fantastic. And the visuals that are not only, arresting to look at, but that move the story along.
Absolutely, yeah.
Visual storytelling. And it's directed...
Coralie Fargeet.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. I would have butchered that, so glad you picked up there. Yeah, and it starts as being your basic rape revenge movie, but a woman director is always going to bring a different eye to that, and she does, and she flips it in such a great way.
Yeah, she really does. Early in the film, the lead, who has a million names, Matilda Anna Ingrid Lutz, who's a beautiful, beautiful woman, and she is filmed, she's ogled by the camera intentionally.
Might as well be Lolita.
Intentionally, absolutely.
Sure.
And then it's funny because then as the camera kind of continues to swirl around this well-appointed getaway cottage, everything is ogled by this camera, and it's just so fascinating as the movie progresses, the way Fargeet calls back to earlier images and earlier shots as things change. The ground shifts underneath these people's feet. And as you said, it is bloody.
Oh,
it is so
my.
bloody. It is so violent. It is, in a very weird way, fun.
Yeah, especially the final third. I mean, when they get back to the house there.
Oh, my God, so much blood.
For that final battle. I mean, yeah, you might as well be waxing the floors with it. But it's so great because the colors of the furniture and the walls and the painting and the way that she uses the splattered
absolutely.
blood. Yeah, fantastic. So it's a rape revenge with a nice different twist to it.
Yeah.
And that is Revenge coming in at number 6 on our list. So before we get to the top 5, the cream of the crop, let's talk about some others, some ones that we enjoyed, didn't quite make the list, some that were some nice surprises, and then some disappointments as well. So what were the ones that we really enjoyed but didn't quite make the top 10? There's a few.
Yeah, there is. The one that just didn't make it is The Endless. But then there are a couple of others. Ghost Stories was a nice anthology film. I normally am not crazy about those. I liked the way that held together. The Night Eats the World, which A, great title.
It is.
B, The Night Eats the World, and also The Dark. 2 other slightly more traditional zombie films that just still managed to be really fascinating in the way they were told.
Yep.
Apostle, I liked a lot. That went right to Netflix, but that was a pretty good one. And then also, and this is one actually that our friend Jason Tostevin, senior filmmaker correspondent, hipped me to. It's called The Ranger. If you get a chance to see it, it's kind of just diabolically funny.
Nice. So those are ones that we certainly liked, didn't quite make the top 10. And there was a couple this year that we found nice surprises, maybe because they're sequels, they're into a franchise. but still thought that they were fresh enough. One of those was The First Purge.
Yeah, I just really felt like it should be called The First Purge, Beating a Dead Horse. But the truth is, like, they found... It was a new filmmaker to the franchise, and he really dug into what's going on at this very second to revitalize that franchise.
Yeah, I thought so too. And also Unfriended Dark Web, I thought actually was better than Unfriended.
And it was funny, we both liked Unfriended, I think, better than most people did. We thought that it carried that concept out pretty well, but this one gets uglier.
Yeah. And I thought it did it even better, and it was a nice surprise because I probably wasn't expecting that much, but I thought they upped the ante in important ways, kept it current. They kept the integrity of the device, still pretty solid, and it was one of those with two endings at the time when you had it in the theaters. You could see one of two different endings. Of course, now you can see both of them anytime you want to. But they're each interesting in their own way. But I thought that was a nice surprise.
Disappointments, is one. People might be wondering if it's going to make the list. The House That Jack Built was. And it's not a bad movie.
It's not a bad movie.
We just were disappointed.
We were disappointed. And I think you talked about when we had a good conversation about this on our other podcast, The Screening Room, where we just talk about all the movies that are out, regardless of genre. Straight-up horror fans, I think, are going to be a little bit let down because it doesn't deliver what you think it might deliver.
Yeah, well, I think that, as horror fans and as Von Trier fans, we went into this thinking we were going to be holding on to our seats. It was going to be punishing. And I think if you watch a lot of horror films, there are some really great sequences, and there are some pretty bloody and disturbing sequences, but as a whole, it's nothing... It doesn't push the envelope in the way that I think he seems to think he did. But what's more problematic for me is that those episodes are strung together with such a tedious, heavy-handed discussion about art.
Yeah, and also we kind of have to reserve judgment a little bit because we saw the director's cut. We don't know what they're going to take out in the regular cut. Because there's one sequence that we think is going to be affected and at least altered in the regular cut that we thought was the highlight of the movie.
But see, I don't think that they're going to alter that.
You really don't?
No, I think that would be the dumbest thing they could do because that...
I'm not saying it wouldn't be dumb.
Which is the picnic sequence.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wouldn't be dumb.
No, I would be shocked if they do. I think if they're smart, I think they'll cut a lot of the epilogue. Because it's just so tedious.
Well, we'll see.
So tedious. But no, I think that, and if as we said in the other podcast, the picnic sequence, if that had just been a short, that's a perfect piece of horror cinema.
Yeah, but I think straight-up horror fans are like you said, probably be let down a little bit by The House That Jack Built. Hellfest was just god awful.
Yeah, and I was hoping it wouldn't be.
Yeah,
and it just,
I like the concept, and I like the way they recreated these horror attractions.
Yeah,
they were cool.
Yeah,
but oh boy, what a waste!
Just a disappointment.
Now, one that we actually didn't love but liked better than most, The Nun. We've mentioned, I think, on here before how just the vitriol for that movie came out this year, and we didn't think it was that bad.
No, we were disappointed, right? We were hoping for more. On the other hand, it was, it's a fun time waster. I thought it was a fun time waster. I thought the exteriors looked great. The interiors were campy fun, like Hammer horror throwback.
Let's run off three that were just terrible. Winchester, Slender Man, and Insidious: The Last Key. Not good at all.
No.
The Strangers Pray at Night. It wasn't terrible.
No, it's just it's to follow up a movie as great as The Strangers.
Yeah.
And one of the things The Strangers did so well was it really embraced the 70s aesthetic. So I think for the sequel, they tried to really embrace the 80s aesthetic, but it just felt like a retread. Aside from one good kill sequence by a pool, the rest of it was just bland.
Yeah. And The Devil's Doorway was a disappointment this year as well.
Yeah, it's a British film. It's funny because if you've seen The Nun, you've basically seen The Devil's Doorway.
All right, so let's move it on up to the top 5 for 2018. At number 5, one that everybody was looking so much forward to this year, and it delivered. Halloween 2018.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him.
This was from director David Gordon Green, taking over the franchise, as we said at the time. Probably the best thing that he did was just ignore all the other sequels and pick it up with the story right where it left off, except so many years later. I thought that was the smartest thing they could have done.
And there are a lot of people who are, purists who did not think that that was the best thing that they could have done. But I am with you. And honestly, the mythology diverts at some point along the line, no matter who you are. So, yes, why not just start fresh? And it's such a great way that they developed the story. It's these two have been separated now for 40 years.
Yeah.
And basically, they've each been obsessing on the other for 40 years.
Yeah. And it's not great all the way through, but I'll tell you what, that finale, I thought really delivered the goods. I mean, I started to wander a little bit, but when it got to it, I thought it really delivered the goods and found a way to add a little fresh wrinkle. I mean, you got that confrontation that you wanted, and they have a great, just a callback to the first movie.
Yes, they do.
I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it. You'll know it when you do see it. It's just picture perfect, and then when they finally wrap it up, I thought it was just a great way to honor the Laurie character, but yet add something else to it and acknowledge that so much time has passed, and then I think really deepen her character.
Yeah.
And Jamie Lee Curtis does a great job with it.
She does.
She brings so much gravitas to it after all this time. And, I thought it was just really solid.
Very fun. It's a slasher film, and it's a callback to really one of the great, if not the all-time best slasher movies. And it's been, done to death. And so to be able to find a very reasonable and yet fresh and believable, but scary and fun. I mean, everything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it did have some weaknesses. It had a couple of characters that weren't very good. It had a couple of no one cared what happened to the dad moments. But on the whole, I mean, it did.
Yeah,
it really delivered.
It delivered the goods. Number 5, Halloween from 2018. Moving up to number 4. This was on our half-year list, and it's good enough to stay near the top. In a post-apocalyptic world, a family is forced to live in silence while hiding from monsters with ultra-sensitive hearing. It's A Quiet Place.
If they hear you, they hunt you.
Who are we if we can't protect them? We have to protect them.
And we've had a lot of fun with this one over the months since it came out. We actually ended up writing a blog on our website, madwolf.com, where we had Mad Wolf Court.
That's
and
right.
Just because, we'd heard so many people that didn't dig it and brought out certain things where they thought it didn't make sense, and we just don't buy that at all.
No,
so
we
had
don't.
fun. We had fun kind of rebutting that. But, I thought it was, again, very fun, very well done, very tense. A monster movie, gives you the monsters at the end, gives you a crowd-pleasing end, and I just thought it was just a really incredible debut directing effort from John Krasinski.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. And lucky for him, Emily Blunt isn't hard for him to cast because she's, as is always the case, she's magnificent in this movie. She is so good. I really also thought that the family dynamic was very interesting.
I did too.
I liked that Krasinski's own character. I mean, I talked to a lot of people who hated him because of this conflict that he had within the family. But I mean, it's hard to work through conflict if you can't ever talk to each other.
And you can have unlikable characters.
Yes, I love an unlikable character.
You were talking about that a little bit earlier for, I think it was Unsane you were talking about. Yeah, that doesn't mean that it sinks the movie or makes the family dynamic, illogical.
No.
I mean, think about what the situation they were in. And as I think we brought this up in that kind of fun blog that we had. I mean, do you absolutely know how you're going to react when the giant ear monsters come? Because I don't think you do.
No.
And this is one great take on it that I thought, it was so tense. And because of the premise, you could feel everyone in the theater, don't crunch that bag of chips.
Yeah,
don't do it.
That's right. Because it's a quiet movie.
Yeah, it was. And we just had a lot of fun with it. And that is number 4 for the year 2018. At number 3, one that has become, I think, a cult classic already, just in the months that it's been out. The enchanted lives of a couple in a secluded forest are brutally shattered by a nightmarish hippie cult and their demon biker henchmen, propelling a man into a spiraling, surreal rampage of vengeance. And who else could that man be but Nicolas Cage in Mandy?
So what you gonna do with that thing?
I'm going hunting.
So what you hunting?
It's crazy evil.
There was so much buzz from horror fans about this movie, and I think it fulfilled pretty much all of them. I haven't talked to hardly anyone, if anyone, who didn't like it.
Oh no, I agree with you. It's just a heavy metal freak show from beginning to end. Everything about it, the aesthetic, and certainly the way that it picks up speed and the way that it turns, surreal and bloody and nuts. And as you've said many times, it's the one movie that out-nutties Nicolas Cage at his nuttiest.
Yeah, it's like this hallucinogenic fever dream, and it does. It out-crazies Nicolas Cage, and it is a writer-director.
Panos Cosmatos.
Thank you. You are the head of the pronunciation department.
Beyond the Black Rainbow is his other film, which is set in the same year and is also very 80s, but in the opposite direction. It's very sterile. It's very white. It's kind of got a little bit of a Cronenberg kind of feel about it. And it's just so interesting to see him make another movie set at the exact same time and have everything about it be different.
And it's such a commitment to vision.
Yeah.
I mean, it never wavers in the vision he has for this movie, and it keeps it all the way to the very end when if you have to stay through the credits because there's a little bit at the end, we talked about this before, that really, if you're a little confused, goes a long way toward tipping its hand to what you've been watching. It has a lot to do with the Mandy character and the drawings and the books and things like that. But that you get so many great sequences,
my God,
one after the other, and these hippie freak cults, and then those demon biker people, and the weapon that it's not a sword, that big thing that he crafts, that Nicolas Cage
he
crafts
forges his own weapon,
and then that one scene with Bill Duke out of nowhere. You're like, this just keeps coming at you in waves of just a surreal craziness.
I also want to just throw a word out for Linus Roach, who plays the leader of the hippie cult, because he's great, too.
Yeah, he is. And we were talking, well, I wasn't talking, I saw a comment by Fright Clubber Jenny Rea from California. She thought it was great because when she finally got to watch it, it was her and her husband and a bunch of his friends, and they were surprised by the Wang appearance. And she thought that was great because normally horror movies, it's boobs of plenty, but hey, look at there.
That's right.
One for the ladies. But we love it so much. And if you haven't seen it, you must do that right now. Well, not right now. Wait till the podcast is over. But then you must see it. That is number 3 of the year, and that is Mandy. So we're up to the top 2. And boy, this has gone back and forth and back since we started talking about these and trying to compile it. And, I think for me, and you're probably the same way, just what day is it? You know, which one are we going to put on top? But at this moment in time, when we're recording this, number 2 for 2018 is going to be the glorious update of Suspiria.
You are living with dangerous people. You're making some kind of deal with them. I don't know what you're talking about.
This race was so tight that we took a poll. Not that I ever actually listened to what other people say, but
what?
We took a poll at our Mad Wolf Pack holiday party just to see. And it's funny because we had a couple of people who were angrily in favor of Suspiria at number 1. And then we had more measured folks on the other side of the kitchen who were explaining to me why the movie that wound up being at number 1, they believe that was the best choice for number 1. But these movies, number 2 and number 1, they are hard not to love if you are a horror fan.
Yeah, this one is so great. It adds so much depth to the original Suspiria. Basically, it just keeps the bones. It keeps the skeleton of the story and then just adds textures and layers, and it adds a glorious finale
Holy
that just
cow.
pulls out the stops. And the performances, the Tilda, of course, the Tilda.
Everything about her in this movie, her hair, her long hair, those long dresses with the long sleeves. I mean, she's glorious. Eating that chicken wing, oh my God. I love Tilda Swinton so much.
And of course, Dakota Johnson in the lead role now, and you've got a cast. It's a great ensemble, and what would you call this? We've done list of feminist horror. I mean, it's so filtered through women and birth, motherhood, rebirth, all those themes. You know, you've taken all the any men out of the dance troupe. I mean, it's so women heavy in a great way.
Yeah, it really is. It's funny. What really struck me was how often I have seen a film where if there is a female character, she's a throwaway and maybe even the butt of a joke, and that's it. And that was the opposite in this film. If there in the rare instance that there is a male character, number one, he may be played by a woman, and if he's not, then he's a naked fat cop, and somebody is using a pencil to make his wiener do a little dance. It's
they get toyed with. They're just toyed with.
They're inconsequential.
You're right.
And I don't know if that's necessarily a feminist concept or not a feminist concept. It's just it was refreshing to see a whole movie where the only characters that mattered at all were female.
And pronounce the right.
And they weren't all dancing around singing Motown with a wooden spoon to their mouth. They weren't.
But some were doing some very grotesque dancing and contorting in
my God.
Oh, that scene. Whew.
Yeah.
Loved it. Just one of many. And pronounce the writer-director.
Luca Guadagnino.
Nice. And he just did Call Me By Your Name last year, which was great. And in much the same way that movie was bathed in romance, this one is just bathed in a gothic nightmare from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just a tone.
Dread.
Oh.
Everything about it is just dread. And Dakota Johnson, the way that her character doesn't really turn. It doesn't really turn. She surprises you, but she's been that the whole time. I loved that performance. It was great.
And I love that because the first thing everybody talks about with the original Suspiria, the color scheme.
Yes.
This one intentionally muted.
Right. Absolutely.
All these muted colors, and then like, well, where's the blood? And then the blood comes.
Oh my.
So I just keep going back to it. I love how he brought so much more depth to the story, and for me, just made it feel. It just was so much more meaningful what everything was going through, and didn't add any didn't have any mystery this time about what was going on in the dance troupe. They were right out there with it. You know, this is what's happening, which I liked as well. So many things, and it's one that I want to, when we have the time, see again.
Yeah,
I really do, and that is number 2 for 2018, Suspiria. And there is only room for one at the top, just by an eyelash. After the family matriarch passes away, a grieving family is haunted by tragic and disturbing occurrences and begin to unravel dark secrets. Hereditary.
Mom? I don't like this. Dad, I don't like this.
What's happening? Peter! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Please stop! Mom, what's happening? Make it stop! Make it stop!
Feature film debut from writer-director Ari Aster.
That is crazy.
Wow.
It's just crazy. It's so accomplished and so confident, and again, there's a depth to it that I loved because it's something we talked about the couple of times that we've talked about this movie on the podcast, is that it works when you follow the narrative of the movie literally, and it works when you don't. It works when you just take it as one big metaphor.
Yeah.
It works either way. I love what his camera does with the miniatures and the house.
God.
I love that jump scare about a third of the way in. Talk about
don't tell me you saw coming.
You
Not
did
you,
not.
George. I know, no way you saw that coming.
And that just resets the whole dynamic.
It does.
Holy crap.
It does, yeah.
We're going to defend Toni Collette's performance. And I know, and Jason Tostovan, who was on the half year list, he was one who thought that she overacted. I just don't see that at all. I think it's a glorious performance that I hope gets some consideration awards time, because I think it deserves it.
Yeah, she has been nominated for an Independent Spirit Award, so that's good to see, as the film has been for Best First Feature. But I agree with you. I mean, I really thought, and I mean, she is never anything short of glorious.
Yeah.
But this movie was just so. She owned it.
Yeah,
and she had some great supporting work around. Ann Dowd is great. Millie Shapiro. she's great.
Yeah, and Gabriel Byrne as a husband. He represents a totally different, dynamic of what's going on, because he's always just on the outside looking in, and then when he gets his there, so that's a shocking, very visually stimulating scene of what comes when he gets his comeuppance, I guess, if you called it comeuppance.
But I think that his point of view, although they don't dig into it, but his point of view is an incredibly important element.
It is.
Element to the, is this happening, is this not happening?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a metaphor, is this reality? Which, I don't think people maybe appreciated as much as I did. Yes, he's about 75 years too old to be married to Toni Collette. But it was an important character, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. The ensemble is great, and it's got.
Oh, we don't want to. Alex Wolff, who played his son, who was also absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, and it's individual sequences that are incredibly striking, but yet I don't think they're striking just for their own sake.
No.
They're very important. They're very intentionally tied to what is going on, and it leads you to this conclusion that I thought was great and creepy.
Yes.
The whole thing. Extremely creepy, and it works on a horror level, and it works on the dynamic of just thinking about the dysfunction that can be passed down from family to family, from family members. I think it works both ways. Yeah, incredibly accomplished debut. Hard to believe, the debut for Ari Aster. Definitely looking forward to what he's got next.
Yes.
But that is the top for us. Number 1 of 2018, Hereditary. I know some people going to be disagreeing. So we'd love to hear from you. Easiest way to find us is on Twitter. We're at Fright Club Pod. You can always find us on Facebook and Instagram. We're Mad Wolf Columbus. And then the main website is maddwolf.com. That's MADDWOLF.com. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been, as we said at the top, it's been a good, solid year for horror.
Yeah, it has been.
It has been. So take that, Vogue. And by the way, if you like the podcast, we appreciate that. We would love to have you drop us a review on Apple Podcasts. Be much appreciated. So until we start digging into 2019, we hope to hear from you. And she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends.
And a frightful new year.